Let's move on to question number 4. This one's also on adults. What are next steps if exposures aren't working? I grew up with SM and eventually became a teacher. I feel I have exposed myself throughout my career, yet I'm far from comfortable. For example, I would never say a word during any of our staff meetings, despite always being in them. For example, I would never say a word during our staff meetings, despite always being in them. Do you have any advice for someone like me who is in a position to make progress, but just isn't? Should I get a new job?
This is somewhat similar to the last question.
Yeah.
So I'm going to kind of tackle it by the things you said. What are the next steps if exposures aren't working? Exposures is a very broad term to me. How are you navigating exposures? One of the things that I talk about often in my podcast, but we do during treatment is how to navigate an exposure, how to do an exposure specific to you. It's not just go out and about and ask a question. It's where are you going? Who's going to be there? What can they ask? What is your answer? What can you ask? And really navigating that in kind of a very stepwise fashion. We call those action plans. I can't emphasize those enough for verbal individuals, how it's so important and to predict questions that can be asked in different settings because people are going to ask similar questions in different settings. When you see a neighbor, they're going to say, "Hey, how you doing? How's your summer going? Anything going on this fall?" Or if it was around a holiday, "Hey, what plans do you have for Labor Day? After Labor Day, wait, what'd you do for the holiday?" You start to kind of predict these types of questions that are going on. If you haven't seen someone in a while and you know them, "Hey, what are you up to? Are you working? You're going to school? Hey, what's your job? What do you think of the political nature of the country right now?" Whatever that question may
I
be,
don't know about
let's
that
hope
one.
let's hope they don't ask that question. It's very confusing time. So I would say that these are the ways we navigate exposures. The simple script approach of pre planning, writing it out, verbally initiating in a store. "Hi, do you have thanks? Hi, where is the thanks?" Kind of navigating. I'd want to know what her specific challenges are in terms of why exposures aren't working. If it's just building overall social communication confidence, it's kind of the ongoing practice of it and really navigating through and then looking back what went well? What was a challenge? This is where therapy comes into play. In
Mhm.
terms of being part of staff meetings, this is similar to individuals that I work with that are older, whether they're in high school or they're in college and they're in class. That's similar to a staff meeting. What we usually try to do is have the ability to write and read. In school, we can set it up where they're near the teacher. So the teacher might turn to that individual and ask questions. But in staff meetings, is it possible for you to think about questions in advance, write them out and read it? Is it possible to kind of predict what might be asked in those staff meetings and write out what your answer might be and read it? A lot of these staff meetings, either they're in person where you could have something written on your phone in notepad, or perhaps it's, written out on a piece of paper. But when questions are asked, having the ability to write and read in that moment. It's amazing how write and read strategy, the script approach works so well with so
Mhm.
many individuals. It helps them process. As far as switching jobs go, that's a whole nother aspect to this question because if you're happy with your job, you enjoy what you do in your job itself, I would not think about getting a new job. What I would do is work with somebody that can help you navigate these questions that you
Yeah.
have to really pull it apart and go through the challenges and kind of, navigate it, really know how to work through the social communication opportunities that are specific to you. That's what you need rather than just move to a new job because the challenges that you are having in this job may come up in a different job. So the question is, do you like your job other than some of these isolated situations, or do you just not like your job at all? So again, if you don't like your job, that might be like, I don't like what I do, even when I'm not speaking, then yeah, maybe this isn't the right job for you. But
Yeah.
if you like your job, you love what you do, you feel very rewarded, you're a teacher, you enjoy teaching, and that's a big shot role, right? You are teaching, so people are looking to you. And that's often a role that I notice a lot of individuals with selective mutism, social anxiety do well when they are somewhat of a big shot or confident in a situation. It helps them feel better. It lowers their anxiety and they tend to be able to accomplish more. So you can see how that's just not an easy answer for me as far as switching a job goes. I'd want to really help you learn the skills.
Yeah, that last part, the new job, it reminds me of a question that I know we've gotten before on Ask Dr. E, but also you've talked about before and just in treatment. Sometimes people with selective mutism have an easier time interacting with people who don't know them that well because they don't feel like that pressure. And sometimes a change of scenery could be good and just relieve some of that pressure, right? So it makes me think of that. Do you think there's something there, like getting a new job would just kind of get her away from the people that don't think she's ever going to talk, and maybe that might be good, or is that's like a band-aid on a bigger wound?
No, no, I actually think that's a great question that you just brought up. What I find with an adult that brings this up, it's not that as much as it is with some of the younger folks. I really feel it's skill based. If she's
Mhm.
been there forever and everywhere else in the world, she is a confident social communicator and she doesn't have this challenge, then yeah, maybe she's very, very conditioned. She's been there for so long. Maybe she even went to school there. I don't know. But for the majority of adults that I work with, and the way this question seems to be written is this seems to be an overall challenge that in staff meetings, I don't have the confidence. I don't know what to say. I feel like I've done exposures my whole career, my whole life, and I'm still not comfortable. So it sounds like it's in multiple areas of her life. When it's that way in multiple areas of her life, then this is a skill. This is learning how to navigate. So my suggestion would be to find a therapist, someone you can really work with once a week, once every 2 weeks, where you can really navigate these specific challenges because it is about building social communication confidence. But again, I go back to what might be holding you up. Is it your language? Is it processing? Is it sensitivities? Is it social anxiety? Like what else may be going on? I'm not
Mhm.
saying it's this case by any means. And I'm not saying it's this person, obviously, because I want to be clear on that. But the reason I bring up some of the whys of SM is because we often work with adults that don't just have the social anxiety, that these other challenges are getting in the way. I was recently working with an adult, I think she was 36 years old. And when I really kind of dissected and we did the selective mutism evaluation, we found out when she was younger and in school, she had processing challenges. I reviewed some past testing when she was younger. She really had difficulty putting her thoughts together to say it, processing information. Well, this individual that's 36 is still having those same difficulties. So we had to get updated testing to really see, has this improved at all? What are the specific difficulties she's having? And guess what? Really has difficulty with processing information. And turns out she had ADHD. Another individual that I worked with was missed her entire life. She had high functioning autism or social communication pragmatic disorder. And it was really hard to navigate social communication situations. Again, it was similar to the last question. There were the social innuendos, the puzzle of social interaction, that social puzzle, the knowing how to navigate a conversation and be able to read between the lines and interpret body language. That was really difficult for some of these individuals. And so we had to really tackle it from that angle. In this particular case, it could just simply be, and I shouldn't say simply because it's more than simply, but it could be social anxiety left untreated and not knowing how to navigate and feel the confidence in social communication opportunities. And if you go your whole life and don't have that confidence, it just kind of trails behind you. So we have to dive in, tease it apart, and really work and navigate these social communication opportunities.